My name's David from NAAIP.org. We have a very special witness. We'll call Brian Davis of Indiana a witness. I believe he will be the main witness at the defamation trial that should be taking place in West Palm Beach, Florida, sometime in the future. Brian, me speaking a lot during this interview is not helpful. I need you to speak. I need you to tell your story. So please take the floor.
My name is Brian Davis. I got into life insurance retirement planning in 2011 and been in the industry ever since, and I'm ready to answer questions.
Let's start off how you got into this business from day one.
Pretty much, I had just graduated from, doesn't really matter, Indiana State University, and turned into a professional pool player. And I had always wanted to be a business owner too. So I had a background in property management with like rental properties and stuff like that. I've been doing that since I was like 13 or 14, just cleaning apartments, painting, maintenance work, landlording around, stuff like that. But I needed to find something and stumbled into life insurance and retirement planning and saw the opportunity to where I could make a lot of money and pretty much set my own schedules. So that's what drew me in, and it's endless. Everyone dies, so everyone needs life insurance. You can never have too much of it, so that's why I'm still here.
What year did you start, and what was the first company or product line that you sold?
Was with the company in 2011. Learned a lot. I mean, we had we had a lot of carriers, and I sold a little bit of everything.
How many years did you work for that company starting in 2011?
I was there until November of 2018.
That was quite a while. What was the name of the company?
It was
National Agents Alliance. I'm pretty sure that company is owned by Integrity Marketing Group right now, but that's besides the point. I don't believe they were owned by them back then.
They weren't.
Were they using the typical system of multi-level marketing, which is mortgage protection, final expense, build a team, buy leads, leads go into a CRM? Was that their system?
Yeah.
How much leads did you buy during that 7 or 8 year period?
Total, I would say probably around $6,000 total.
So you were not a big lead seller, a lead buyer, that is.
I was not.
Were those leads worthwhile for you?
Yeah, they were.
How much life insurance sales did you make during that 7 or 8 year period?
Total, when I put in the effort, about $7,000. So about the same as what I paid for the lead costs altogether.
Brian, I'm not so good at math or the time management professorship, but if you spent 7,000 in leads and you earned $7,000, and this is over a 7 year period, you pretty much wasted your time. Would you say that's accurate?
I learned a lot, so I considered it an investment, and I know what I'm doing now. So
you enjoyed you actually enjoyed the profession. You like what you're doing.
I enjoyed it. Yep.
That was the main thing.
I went to conventions. I had a lot of fun. Had a lot of great memories. Late 20s, North Carolina. No complaints from me whatsoever.
Why did you leave NAA in 2017-18?
I noticed that another company that had started a few years ago was starting to really get rolling. So I jumped on board with them.
What was the name of the company?
Family First Life.
I believe it was a similar setup: mortgage protection, final expense, build a team, buy leads, go into CRM. Is that correct?
It was.
How much leads did you buy from them?
Total, probably, I would say maybe $1,500.
How many years were you with them?
I was with them until about June of 2020, right after the pandemic hit.
It was almost the same story. You enjoyed the job, you enjoyed the camaraderie, but you really weren't making money.
Right.
I called you on the subject matter as the main witness. I personally am going through I was served defamation papers by a major multi-level marketing company that had this setup that you mentioned: buy leads, final expense, mortgage protection, build a team, buy leads, leads go into CRM. The setup is in multiple companies through the industry. You came to a lot of these video conference calls that I hold 6 days a week. That's Monday to Thursday, 12 noon Eastern time, Saturday, Sunday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You were at a lot of these calls. I did notice that.
Yes.
How many calls would you say you were at?
Total, I would say, goodness, I was probably on total of around, I don't know, 60
Take
calls.
a guess.
60?
60? Wow, time flies when you have fun. I guess you and I are having fun together and we don't even realize how much fun we're having.
Several times was when I was on the road too.
So you would be a prime witness if you looked up if you Google the word federal defamation law. There's a New York Times case from 1964. It specifically says the statements that I would have had to make would have to be malicious, and they would have to be to a point hateful, malicious, where I have to know that I'm lying. During these 60 calls that you were at, did you get an inkling of feeling that I was lying through my teeth and I knew I was lying through my teeth?
No.
The other people that were on the call, did they have a feeling that I was lying through my teeth?
And I don't think it really matters. You weren't, so.
Okay, but how many people were on these calls on average during these 60 times you were there?
Oh, well, these random people would just sort of chime in. Like, I'm used to it with me being a pool player. During like a very important match, like someone from the crowd will just show up and say something or whatever. It was sort of the same way that in the middle of the call, we didn't even know they were on the call or anything. And then towards like the end or whenever, they would just randomly chime in and
I get you.
Whatever.
And the technique that I was using, which I still use till this day, is I would say stuff. I would hear people what they have to say. Then I would say stuff to keep it entertaining, because if it was boring, no one would show up and they wouldn't stick around. The defamation laws in America, based on that New York Times precedent in 1964, I really have to be malicious, hateful, and know that I'm lying. So when you're based on you going to these 60 calls, you did not feel that was even close to being accurate.
No.
If that was correct, if I sounded deceptive and accurate and sleazy and hateful, you probably wouldn't have been to 60 calls.
Right. Yeah. I've heard enough from whoever.
Have you?
Yeah.
Have you been to marketing calls from other insurance companies and other insurance marketers, such as the company you mentioned, FFL, which was your previous company?
Yes, I was on a lot.
Also, dozens and dozens of calls of them.
Yeah.
My calls were interactive, so I could make a statement, and others were invited to contra or say the complete opposite of what I was saying. And I still do this to the day. I keep them on if it's interesting. If they've got something interesting to say, even though it may be an opposite opinion to myself, I would keep them on. Did FFL have the same policy where they were interactive calls where people could come in and say whatever they want?
The leaders could say whatever they wanted on the calls, but other than that, I mean, if you're not up in the ranks, you really don't have a voice. You're just kind of there. They recognize you though.
So it's the interactive type system where they see you're on the call, but you can't say anything.
Yeah.
Which was dissimilar to what I'm doing, where people could talk and say whatever they want.
Right.
And I would encourage, and I believe you noticed that I encourage people to disagree with me to make it interesting. Is that correct?
Could you repeat the question?
I believe you recall, or you would agree, that I would encourage people to disagree with me, to have some sort of conversation to keep it more interesting.
Yeah.
And that's why you showed up 60 times, because it was sometimes a little bit interesting.
It's interactive, right.
You really heard a cross-section of other insurance agents and what they were going through. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
Besides, if it was just me talking over and over and over and pretty much saying the same thing, it would be pretty darn boring, and you wouldn't have showed up 60 times. Is that accurate?
Right.
Let's harken back to quite a few months ago, December, January, February. This is the time frame that I'm being sued for defamation. And we have to keep in mind that to be convicted, not convicted, I guess to be found guilty of defamation according to the U.S. precedent, I have to physically state stuff in a malicious manner, knowing I'm lying. The topic of conversation, which I am being sued for defamation for, has to do, I don't even want to mention the name of the company. There's no need for me even to go there. I'll just say MLM. The MLM, that you do recall there were a lot of people on that call, December, January, February, regarding MLM. Were you on any of those calls where that was the top of conversation?
Where was I? I know I wasn't on a lot of those calls.
I mean, but you were on one call, let's say 1 or 2 calls.
Yeah.
You do recall that topic being, sometimes when you're on 60 calls, you don't actually recall what month it was on or what week, but you do recall that subject was brought up quite a bit on a few of those calls that you were on. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah.
The feedback that I got of other people on that calls, from your recollection, was I being attacked as being lying, or were people generally agreeing with me?
It was just people being hateful. It was bullying, and it's been going on for a while. I noticed it too on other outlet like social media and stuff, that there was just endless bullying. And again, I'm used to it. I'm friends with a lot of celebrities. They get bullied all the time. Yeah.
Brian, I don't think you understand the question. I'm saying on my conference call, my recollection on the conference call, I'm not even going to tell you what my recollection is. The people that were on my conference call that I hold on Monday to Thursday, 12 noon, Saturday, Sunday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, did you hear stories of people on those conference calls that were part of this multi-level marketing that did get ripped off by this lead selling system? Oh, that was the question. That was the question. Maybe you didn't hear it properly. So
yeah, I'm having trouble hearing it.
Okay, so that was the actual question I was asking. So you do recall you heard a lot of stories of victims during those conference calls I was having in January and February. You did. I recall that as well.
Yes.
And did you sort of feel bad for these people, one after another, saying they got ripped off, they got ripped off, they got ripped off?
Yes.
When you heard those stories? There was a gentleman I did speak to named Robert Taylor. He actually said he spent $9,000 on lead. He must be in his 70s. I don't know his exact age, but these stories break your heart.
Yeah,
and
I
was hearing these stories on a regular basis on these conference calls, and it did break my heart. And I don't want to, I know online we hear you may be talking about the bullying of people who are supportive of these MLMs, who say these stories that, hey, everyone's making money. But these stories I never heard on my 6-day per week video conference call. The conference calls that you were at, did you hear any stories of people showing up stating, hey, I'm making a fortune, everything is hunky-dory with my multi-level marketing company that sells me leads? Do you recall any stories like that? I didn't hear any. I did not hear one story. It was like,
nope. And
you also notice on these video conference calls, which I noticed, some people are pretty suitable for the insurance business or the salesperson business based on their tone of voice,
right?
The way their mode of speaking, and you can tell who's good. And at a certain point, I was hearing people who sound pretty darn good. They have a pretty professional voice, and these people were losing money in this multi-level marketing. That was something a little, once I heard these people were losing money, I pretty much knew this was not something that was controversial or debatable. I don't even want to go there about cease and desist from the FTC and all that other stuff. But that was the main issue of this federal trial that will be coming up in West Palm Beach, will be my mental state if I was malicious and hateful and I knew I was lying. So based on these 60 video phone calls you have, you could say unequivocally that is a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke. Yeah, and the stories from these other agents that lost out are haunting to even think about.
Did you listen to the Greg Birch audio tape?
I did.
How many times did you listen to it?
I listened to it once, but I pushed rewind a few times because I was thinking to myself, did I hear that right? And then I would rewind it, but I listened to it once.
How did you like the point where he stated thousands of agents lost thousands of dollars and did not make one sale?
They were victims. Yeah, that's what I would call it. Yeah, people being targeted.
The amount of people that I spoke to personally was only in the dozens, but all those dozens of people had the same story, but supposedly there were a lot more based on Greg Birch's audio interview, which is completely understandable. Have you seen online, you mentioned the word bullying. I suppose you're connected to LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. Who are you connected to?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, although I don't want to be, but I am.
Let's say Facebook. I personally got triggered based on, not triggered in a bad way, but when I saw multiple people stating that the average income of a particular multi-level marketing company is $111,000 compared to, let's say, $55,000 for State Farm. That personally triggered me because I knew it was a bunch of hooey. Did you ever recall seeing that multiple MLM recruiters posting that?
Yeah. I mean,
you did.
They weren't honest about the turnover ratio. They should have mentioned that a lot of people lose money too, but they didn't.
They were using that advertisement from, I believe it was called, from a link to Indeed.com that states the average income is $111,000, and they gave a list of other companies such as State Farm, which is $55,000, et cetera, et cetera. Right? That's really what triggered this whole mess. And you also had, I'm on LinkedIn as well, so it was, this stuff I believe was more on LinkedIn than Facebook, but it was on both places. I also recall literally more, not dozens, not hundreds and hundreds of agents on LinkedIn, it could have been on Facebook, saying that they'll teach new agents how to earn $250,000. Do you recall seeing any of that on Facebook?
Could you repeat the question? So I apologize.
This was more on LinkedIn. It could have been on Facebook as well, but you had dozens, if not hundreds of people, recruiters stating that they will teach you how to make over $250,000. You recall that?
Yes.
Was there any inkling in your brain that thought these two advertising campaigns could be true? That the average did you actually think it may be true? You're seeing it from hundreds of different profiles. There was you thought maybe, hey, maybe you just weren't doing the right thing and you probably should be making $110,000. And if you just got mentored by these people, you would make $250,000.
Yes.
You thought they were being honest. When you came to NAIP 6 days per week, when you came into those video conference calls and random people showed up and one by one is telling you that they're not making money and they bought leads and they're, sad stories every day. Did that change your opinion on the honesty of those online advertisements?
I already knew what was going on. Like, I know a lot of these people personally that went pretty much bankrupt. Have families and wives.
You told me a moment ago that you believe those advertisements to be true, that they could teach you how to make $250,000. Now you're telling me that you don't believe it. So which one is it?
Well, there was a time when I believed it. I also knew that you really had to know what you're doing with it. So, it is what I learned after a while. If you don't do the right thing, you're going to drown.
Okay, Brian, I pretty much figured out that it's not true. There's just made up numbers.
Yeah. And
when the FTC came in and said, "Hey, you gotta stop lying online," that pretty much put it clipped that whole ad campaign.
Got him.
It's gone. But that ad campaign was super effective. It's not surprising that the company that was doing that ad campaign with hundreds and hundreds of profiles on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc., it's no surprise that they recruited tens of thousands of agents during the time. It's understandable because they were very convincing ad campaigns.
Right.
When a person came into that type of system and they physically believe that they're going to make $250,000 and they're recommended to buy, let's say, between $800 and $1,500 a week in leads, would you say there quite a few people got caught up into that sales pitch and actually pulled the trigger and bought $1,000 of leads?
Yeah. Yep.
And I believe we heard quite a few of those people on those 6-day per week video conference calls of these type of stories. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, at least that's what I heard. I was at every one. Maybe you were there or not there, but that's besides the point. So again, I personally, I'm being sued in federal court in West Palm Beach, Florida, for, I suppose, publicizing this joke, because I believe it's a joke. And the other side, in fact, I'll just tell you right off the bat, I did speak to the plaintiff attorney. The plaintiff attorney says, hey, the Greg Birch audio interview, they're gonna say it's a lie. Did Greg Birch when Greg Birch was speaking on that audio interview, did he seem like he was lying?
No, and I believe every word. I knew what was going on. I mean, people know what's going on. The FTC knows what's going on. I mean, that's all.
Well, the FTC has a very limited power to stop bad advertising or bad marketing. That's it. They come in, they stop, they say you can't do it anymore. That's it. It's really up to the Department of Insurance of the various states to put these bad actors or the federal court or the court system. But the FTC, from as far as I know, that's all they're going to do. Okay, Brian, I'm looking forward to you being a star witness, not because you're the most handsome guy in the world, which you are, because you were at 60 of these calls.
I learned a lot.
As far as I know, I say pretty much the same thing all the time. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe you could tell me why you came to 60 calls.
Because there was stuff that I hadn't learned yet about the business, and I just wanted to learn everything that I could. And I was mainly on because I got NAPE in August, September, July of 2020, and then started jumping on the calls. I finished up a run with Amazon during the pandemic, and then in November of 2020, I started jumping on the calls, and I was on a lot through 2021 of like April, and I was on the website too, just learning stuff. I was learning I was pretty much renovating my business to where I could just work and not have an upline or anything like that. Just have my own agency, and it goes on, and that's what I did. I got everything set up, and I'm ready to keep rolling.
The advice that you probably remember me saying over and over is that you have to be completely in control of your business and generating leads and getting in front of people and closing deals.
Absolutely.
And you're actually going into a hornet's nest if you outsource half your profession, half your job, which is lead generation. If you outsource that stuff, you're toast. And based on the stories that I heard on this call from these agents that did outsource their job, it never works out. It works out well for the person who's getting a job, which is to sell you leads, which is to empty out your bank account, but it doesn't work out for the person who pays the bills.
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in West Palm Beach. It's my belief that if I could get enough excited and charismatic and wanting people to help out their fellow human beings, that the defamation lawsuit will be dropped.
Hopefully.
But my job for the next couple of months is to make interviews like this on a daily basis. And I suppose if you're called as a witness from Indiana, the opposing side, which did tell me they're willing to spend $1 million in legal fees, I suppose they'll depose you, which is ask you a bunch of questions. For the most part, it's a scary situation when you're being deposed by $1 billion company. but it's only scary if you're not telling the truth. If you're telling the truth, you're good. And keeping in mind that the laws of defamation in America are very much for free speech, as per that New York Times precedent from 1964.
Yep.
As they say in professional, the UF, what was it, the WE? Let's get ready to rumble. If that's being the case, so I'm looking for. Hopefully we'll meet someday, some way. If it's not in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't go through, but if it does, I'll do what I have to do. But yeah, other than that, hopefully we can meet up one day.
The more I talk, the less good it is. They're really on me. Apparently, let me just give you my 2 cents. I believe, which you may disagree or agree, that they feel some sort of threat from little me on NAAIP giving these 6-day per week video conference calls, specifically telling agents, your job is to get in front of people, your job is to close deals, which in essence means don't outsource. You're getting in front of people to a lead company, et cetera, et cetera. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yes.
That's really what they're threatened about. On a regular basis, I'm telling people to take responsibility for their profession, which is to get in front of people, which is synonymous with the word lead generation.
Yes.
And would you agree or disagree that that's probably why this company is willing to spend $1 million on legal fees and to throw a Hail Mary?
Yeah, I mean, that's the motto is, do your job, do everything on your own, don't outsource anything. I mean, I even tried to do that in 2013, just sort of generate my own leads and everything, and was limited on all the sales that I made. But I mean, that's been my philosophy from the beginning, was just doing exactly what you just said that you've been saying. So absolutely.
An insurance agent that spends $1,000 of leads a week or $500 of leads a week from the get-go, would you say that's smart or stupid as heck?
I never liked buying leads. I found out in 2013 that you can buy data, pretty much just go through and call. And I remember I was making huge sales. I was making like 1,300 dials on one day or 1 week or whatever it was, and I had all these sales coming in, and then it ran into problems down the pipeline. But yeah, I mean, I've always been that way.
Brian, you just said you made huge sales, but you told me during this whole 7, 8 years in this company, you bought $6,000 of leads and made $6,000 of sales. So we'll figure this out later.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be humorous. I'm confused. Did you make a lot?
Don't ask
it's all relative. The state departments of insurances are super, super curious, and I'm super curious that the marketing companies that sell leads to thousands and thousands of agents, if sales do come in. According to the Greg Birch interview, churning is prevalent. The agents are taught to churn, to replace policies, and they lead with a very expensive company. In fact, as far as I know, the most overpriced policy in the marketplace. We need to get examples from actual clients that bought this overpriced product on day one, then they got switched over to another policy on day 3 a year later. And that's actually what the various states are looking at. And inevitably that'll lead to elder abuse charges.
I heard about that, yeah.
But they it cannot be hearsay. It cannot be. They're not going to do an investigation. Maybe they will if the FBI or the CIA gets involved. But the 1 or 2 departments of insurances that I spoke with, they specifically said they need actual examples of actual clients, which I suppose is not hard to get. During this defamation trial, I'll certainly request from the judge for that to be discovered, part of the discovery process, a list of agents who who made sales. Now, and I'll try to prove my case that way as well. So I'm pretty darn sure that the plaintiff does not want me to do that type of discovery, because that could lead to jail time.
Yeah, 4 years
So well, in the state of California, I believe in the state of Florida, it's actually more.